Hey, welcome to the Creative Block, hosted by Gene, that's me, and V.
That's me.
This is a show where we interview animation industry people, our friends, and whoever else is willing to come on the show, and just kind of getting people's life stories, kind of figuring out how they got into animation, because there's a lot of interesting stories out there, a lot of different paths, and I think there's probably people who would love to hear it. Today, I will be your host, and we are interviewing V. V, tell us about yourself.
Hello. My name is V. My full name it's Violaine, and the last name is Briat. Briat, like the Americans say.
Briat.
Briat. I'm French. That's a fact about me. Yeah, I moved out here in the US back in 2016 for the second time, because I first moved out here when I was 13, and that was, oh my God, my math is bad, but it was probably around 2004, I think.
Yeah, you went to high school here, right?
I went to, yeah, I went to a little bit middle school and a little bit high school.
Okay.
And so I actually was out here in 8th grade. 8th is still middle school, right?
Yeah. I think it depends on the school district, but yeah.
And I moved back to France when I was 16, and that was around 11th grade. So is that sophomore? No, wait, junior in high school?
Something like that.
And then I graduated from high school in France, attended college in France. I started my career in France. After that, I went to Japan for a year, and that's when I started getting interest from the American studios. I think because I was able to do a lot more personal art, because since I was freelancing, I had all this, I could do whatever I wanted with my schedule, which was the best. I think that's kind of how I got noticed by the Loud House. I took the test, and actually the story is crazier than that, but we can go more into details about it later.
Yeah, well, that's how we originally met. I was doing background design on Loud House, and you were boards, but we mentioned it in the first episode, I think, but you were like this mysterious French girl who was doing boards from overseas in Tokyo, which was pretty crazy that you I mean, we'll get to that too, but yeah, the fact that you just casually lived in Tokyo for a year, right?
Yeah. It was just this thing where I was just like, I heard of this working visa, and you can only get it until you're 30. At the time, I was like 24. Oh, wow. And I was just thinking to myself, well, if I don't do it right now, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be 30 and I won't have ever gone to Japan. So I was like, I've got to do it right now. Now or never. YOLO. I
had no idea. I didn't know that was how you ended up there. But yeah, we're jumping around a little bit. Tell me, also, this episode is a little weird because we started recording it and then it all fell apart. Ain't that just the way? Isn't that just how all podcasts
Isn't that just how life is? Whoopsie.
Oh, shit. So let's take it back. Rewind. Tell me sort of what got you inspired to draw, to get into animation when you were a kid. What was your kind of inciting
incident? So, as I was kind of saying earlier, for me, drawing is something that I've always done. I've always been drawing, I think, because probably it was the best thing to kind of keep me quiet as a kid. I don't know, I don't know how it happened the first time I drew anything, but it feels like when I had a pencil or a crayon in my hand and a piece of paper, I would probably leave my parents alone or whatever. So it was something that I got in the habit of doing. I also just kind of like coming up with stories and just kind of come up with imaginary settings and characters. I never really drew, sorry mom and dad, but I don't really remember drawing my parents or my family or myself. I just drew random people and character and animals, and it was kind of something I was thinking about recently. Is as a little kid, I wasn't really interested in playing the typical games, playing with dolls or Barbie dolls or the typical games that are assigned to kids. All I wanted to do was create stories. So I liked role playing a lot. And when I had Barbie dolls or even or dolls, like what I wanted to do was like recreate adventures. Like adventures was like really my thing. So like I would use them they would go on quests or stuff. Even like I don't know, I don't know, with my sister we would play this game with like the Barbie dolls where like the Ken would like kidnap them and would want to like smooch them, and like our Barbies would like come and kick in doors and be like, get your hands off of her. Yep, that was what I did.
Flexing your imagination.
Yep.
Even
And also like in class, it was just like in class it was just like I was lucky that we had this teacher who, whenever you were done with your assignment, she had this extra little sketchbook with blank pages, which for me it felt like a little treasure, because like at home we're only supposed to draw on paper that was printed on one side. So to have like a little book with blank paper on both sides, it was crazy. It felt like precious time. So after and so I actually went through a lot of those when I was in elementary school. I would just draw in those, because I this is gonna sound like a weird flex, but like I would be done with assignments pretty early, like early.
Wow, just bragging about your
I know
assignments.
Anyway, well, at least I was quiet because I was drawing. So anyway, as a kid, I was like, I want to be a drawer, because that makes sense.
At which point did you kind of feel like you could actually make a career out of it?
I think first I kind of thought I was gonna go into picture books for kids, because I was reading a lot of those. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of heard like, no, it's too difficult. You can't do that. So then I was like, I started reading comics and I was like, those are great. I can probably make a career out of making comics. And then I went to those like conventions and met comic artists, and they were like, this is too difficult. You can't do that. You're not going to make any money. And then I was like, well, and then I started reading manga, and I was like, well, this sounds easier. I can just learn Japanese and move to Japan and draw manga. Like, so much easier, right?
So much easier.
And then I realized, okay, and my parents were like, all right, yeah, you know what you can do? You can just like get a regular job like teaching or something, and then you can just draw on the side. And I actually considered that for a while. Like I was like, oh, maybe I should, like, I don't know, go into psychology or whatever the heck. But it was not until when I was in the US, I was just drawing in class like usual, and this girl saw my drawing and she was like, wow, you should work in cartoons. And I was like, is that even a thing? Because, you know, like at the time I thought like I know this is so silly, but at the time I thought like in the cartoon factory they would just press buttons and then the cartoon would come out of that. That was how it was.
That's not how it is.
That was how it was in my brain. And then when this girl was like, oh wow, this looks like a cartoon character, you could work in cartoons, I was like, people work, like this is an actual job.
Yeah, I think a lot of people still think that, unfortunately.
I know. Well, it took me a long time. And then it's funny that you mentioned Newgrounds in the first episode, because I actually was talking with a friend of mine on Messenger, because French people used Messenger and American people used AIM, and he would make those super like low def kind of crude animations, and I was like, wow, like you can do that with the computer. And then for some reason I ended up going onto Newgrounds, and I was like, oh, these kids are making cartoons with just a computer. Like, what's stopping me from making me cartoons just like them? And I didn't make a whole lot of cartoons for Newgrounds. I made a few. One got front page, but I deleted it because I can't. It's like,
what?
No, I do not. I'm too embarrassed. And it's gone in the ether. Nobody will ever. Yeah, it's gone.
Damn.
It's gone forever.
Well, that's a bummer.
But I spent a lot of time on it, like at least 2 months.
Do you usually like purge the stuff that like your older work from the internet, or is that just one example of you like not wanting to have something online? Because I feel like a lot of artists seem to want to like bury their past, and I've never really felt that way, so I'm curious.
I do try to do that, mostly because I'm very embarrassed by my old work, just the style and also the themes. I don't know, one day I'm gonna get canceled. Someone's gonna be able to like just dig out something, and they're gonna be like, look at what she wrote.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was 14.
I think it's like, it's a part of life. I think it's like you die someday and you get canceled someday. That's just the cycle.
I'm just waiting for the day.
So like give me the timeline. So like you finished high school, and did you go straight to Gobelin, or did you kind of do something else before?
So before I went to Gobelin, so because in France, the public art schools have entrance exams, because obviously since they're public, the tuition cost is not that crazy. Well, but that was 10 years ago. Things have changed. Now the tuition cost is a little bit more. It's still less than in the US. But at the time when I was applying, tuition was pretty fair. Like when I attended, it was $4K a year, which is not that bad.
Oh, wow.
It's not bad.
No, that's not bad at all.
And it was only 3 years, so math, it's 12 grand for Gobelin. And so a lot of people want to get in, and like when I tried to make it into these two, I tried twice to get into Gobelin. The first time I failed, and the other schools that I tried to get into, I also failed, because there's a lot of people applying. So the entrance exam is like you have like between 400 up to sometimes 800 people in the same room, in the same big room. And it's so much like Naruto, you know, when they take that exam, it is exactly the same.
Yeah, I know. Are you encouraged to cheat too? You have to find clever ways to cheat.
I wish we were encouraged to cheat, but you can't really cheat those because it's just like skill. Because like one part of the exam was like, you have to draw, they give you a model sheet, and it could be whichever character. Let's pretend it's like, I don't know, Robin Hood from Disney movie. And then you have to draw them running and jumping, and then like in perspective, and then you have a couple hours to do this one. So that's one big part of the entrance. You have a multiple choice test, which is kind of to test your like culture, kind of like, do you read books and know things? I don't know how well I did on this. I hope I never find out my result, because
that's so crazy. Yeah, that's such a
you have another part to test, which is like storyboard. So they give you like a short story, and you have to storyboard it in like 3 hours.
Wow.
You have another thing, which is like perspective drawing. So it's just like draw these things in perspective, like a cube or like a house. Or sometimes there's some tricky ones. It's like, it's a mirror in perspective, and it's like, oh my god, like, are you like for real right now? Like, I'm supposed to do all this brain work, but it's kind of fun. Like, it's kind of, I mean, it's really scary, but it's also kind of exciting to be taking this like crazy entrance exam. And you have everyone, and everyone's anxious, and like there's this lunch break, and the only thing that's next to the like entrance, like exam room, is like this dinky like McDonald's, and everyone's just going to the McDonald's. The line is going on forever because there's like 800 people that need food.
Yeah, that doesn't seem very well thought out.
No, it's not. But hey, that's France for you. It's
dunked on. Cool. Okay.
And so I did 1 year. I did 1 year of a preparation art school because I had to get in, right? Like, so I had to like pass the test. So since the first time I failed it, I went 1 year into this preparation art school, which is like, for 1 year, you really do a lot of life drawing, a lot of still life, a lot of perspective drawing. You go out and sketch like the city or like train stations or whatever the teacher would like take us out to like draw. We had art history classes they called volume, which was a waste of time, but just a bunch of they had like creative drawing classes, which were really geared more towards fine art, because that preparation art school that I went to, they really did not like Gobelin at the time. That was 10 years ago. At the time, they were like, what are you going to do? Are you going to draw like Mickey Mouse really as a career? I know, they were like dunking on animation so hard, and because they all wanted us to get into the fine art school, or there was another school that was kind of like in between, in between fine art and like craftsmanship. So they wanted us to get in there, and so they didn't really want us to go to Gobelin, but I went in anyway.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me that like animation has this, I guess even in France, that it has this sort of connotation of being like low.
Yeah, it's not, it's like a low art.
Because and like how much of an influence has it had on everything, you know? So it's like, I don't understand. I don't know why. But it does seem like comics kind of rule supreme in France, because a lot of artists that graduate Gobelin
The thing with comics in France and also like going to a school like Gobelin and then like going into the animation industry, I was actually talking about that with a couple friends of mine, is that there's a big gap between the school's expectations of you and the work, the actual industry's expectation of you. Because when you're in school like Gobelin or any of the other art school, they prep you to be an artist, like an auteur. Like they want you to think about stuff, to like go to museums, read philosophy, like just like really cultivate that auteur brain of yours. And then so you kind of like in school you're kind of expected to be this like, I'm not intellectual, but like, you know, have like an opinion, a point of view, and all these things. And then when you get to work in the animation industry in France, it's like you're just a craftsman, which is also great. Like I really like the craft of animation, but there's like a big gap between the expectation of the school and the expectation of the industry, which can be confusing, I think, as an art kid who's just graduated, because you're like, hold on. Like I thought I was supposed to hate on anime and manga, all the like and entertainment as a whole, because usually entertainment, especially, and I don't want to dunk on France too much because I also love my country, but there is a little bit of shit. Yeah, but like
I want to hear it. I want to hear you talk shit.
We don't really hold in high esteem entertainment.
That's bizarre. It seems like so much of it comes out of France.
Of entertainment?
Yeah, I mean, not even just animation. I mean, how much, I mean, comics has so many deep roots in France, and like movies, like so much film comes out of
but like
France.
movies are, when you think about movies, you have to think about the French Nouvelle Vague, so the new wave, and it was like super auteur, super intellectual, and a lot of comics in France have this ambition of being like you're a writer, like someone, like you have a thesis, an opinion, and you're like, and I think that's great. I love those comics. The only thing that I think is a little, it's not like sad, but that I'm missing is that I wish there were more of a balance. I think it's okay to praise entertainment as well, because I feel like, for me, my point of view right now with France is that there's a really good, like a gold mine in auteurs, in artistry, in like point of view on intellectual themes. There's not a whole lot being done with entertainment value. And when I'm talking entertainment, is just like something that you can just easily tune into, have fun with, and just like turn off. Like for me, the point of entertainment is to have people have a good time, and maybe they learn something, maybe they don't, but the main point is having a good time. Whereas like a book or like a tour type of work, like the main focus of that book is for your audience or your reader to kind of like ask themselves question or think a little bit. So the goal for both is a little bit different.
I guess so. I don't see, to me, the distinction, like ideally something doesn't have to be just entertaining or just thought-provoking or whatever, you know. So it's like a lot of the stuff that I grew up with that made me like think critically or just kind of like analyze my own emotions, like it was probably schlock. Like a lot of stuff that you grow up with as a kid is schlocky because it's just like it's meant for kids, but like the stuff that really sticks with you had something to say while being entertaining. And so but I don't know. Granted, this is my career and it's my passion, and so like obviously I'm gonna get up on a pedestal about it, but I get annoyed when people treat entertainment as if it's not important, or that it's like looked down on or something, because we see it, especially now, like in month 7 of quarantine.
People need it. People need entertainment. Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah. And holy shit, people need it. And it's like, and animation specifically is the only industry that's still going. So it's like, for all the people who look down on it, especially live action, and just sort of treat it as like this thing that's just for kids, it's like, hey, I don't know, man, we're all still employed, thankfully, and like, and things are moving, and it's because we're able to do this from home, essentially. You know, going forward, I hope there's a little bit more respect for animation. I don't expect there will be.
And I agree with that, because honestly, when I first came out to the US, it was very refreshing for me to finally see people caring about cartoons. I guess it's like the pendulum, like there's two extremes. Like if France is the extreme where it's just like only smart stuff, like this is a caricature. It's not all like that. But then here it's like
Right. No, of course.
people are really putting entertainment not on the pedestal, but they're like it's really important here. Like people take it seriously, and that's kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah, too much,
Too much so.
also too much. When you look at animation Twitter, sometimes it's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, everything should have a balance, and yeah, it's like to counter everything I just said, people also need to chill the fuck out sometimes. Like, I think that it's important to value things, you know, animation and entertainment, and I will die on that hill that it's like
Right.
these things are important to people, but I think the line gets crossed when people become so attached to it that it becomes their whole identity, and they start like bullying others for not agreeing with their opinion, and it gets to be so possessive, and that seems to be a problem mostly with Western animation audiences. Maybe it happens, I don't know, maybe it happens in the East too, we don't see it. Yeah, man, animation Twitter gets really gross. But anyway, yeah, that's just interesting to me that even in France, where from my American point of view, I always figured it was way more like respectful of all of that, and seeing how many talented artists come out of Goblin, and like, I guess it's not. I guess it's just, you know.
I feel like honestly, the thing in France that's kind of missing compared to the American animation industry is that, you know, if you get to the root of the problem, it's money. Like there's no money in France.
Right.
So we're kind of stuck rebooting the same franchise that were successful in like the 80s or the 60s even. Because it's, unfortunately, as a producer, I don't think you can afford to take risks. So your best bet to sell a product is going to be to sell a big brand. And also because it's probably extremely unlikely for you as a producer, as a French producer, to be able to produce your cartoon by yourself. So you're going to have to do co-productions, and
Right.
co-productions only within France are not going to be enough. You can get like government grants and like help, but it's not going to be enough. So you're going to have to partner up probably with Germany. France loves Germany.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to have to partner up with the UK.
Yeah.
Probably going to partner up with Italy. Those are usually kind of like the main. Sometimes if you're lucky, you partner up with Canada, and that's the grail, because I think Canada has like more money or like distribution power. It's closer to the US.
Interesting. So that's how you end up with movies where there's like
Yes.
5 different countries involved, just because it really is just a matter of like budget distribution, and like
it really is. And then that gets tricky, because everybody, when they get to produce, they get to give their opinion, and you end up having sometimes like a culture clash, like what some French people think is funny, maybe like German people don't think it's funny, or like a joke that is going to be okay with French people is going to be really offensive to someone in Britain. And then there's also productions where it did happen. I heard that like you might get probably like Canada, like the branch of, I don't know, like I'm just gonna throw in anonymous name, but like Studio Y in Canada wants to show that they're a better studio than Studio X in the UK, and who's gonna have the better SNPs, and who's gonna be like the more children appropriate. And you have sometimes these like ego battles that are just to show each other that they know how to do their job better, and then you're kind of there like at the end of the line being like, okay, this is all great and everything, but we're just still trying to make this cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the case anywhere. That's just the nature of the beast, I guess. That is the problem with kind of trying to get anything made, is you're going to need a budget, you're going to need money. But let's talk about, just looking at your art, looking at everything you've done, you clearly have a lot of things you kind of take influence from and stuff that you pull from, but none of it's like very clear, which is great. Like, I think that's
great to know.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that is good to aspire to, and you nail it, which is that like we're all paying homage to the things we grew up with, the movies or the TV shows, just like whatever. But yeah, I'd love to know what those things are for you. Like if there's any specific anime or if there's specific comic.
I feel like for me, growing up, like if I think about all the influences that I had as a kid, I was obsessed with manga. But before I was obsessed with manga, because that was probably when I was around 10 or 11, I read comics. I started reading comics around 6. So I read a lot of like French, Belgian comics. So the art style is very, I think French Belgian comics, something that's kind of like specific about them is that they're cartoony in their proportions, but they're very like solid in terms of the volumes. So there's like kind of like this draftsmanship. So I guess I was like really receptive to that. I read just so much stuff. I loved Garfield too when I was looking. I loved Garfield. His drawings are so appealing. Like,
all right,
like maybe not now anymore, but like when I was a little kid, I was like for me those were super appealing, and I thought it was hilarious.
Agree to disagree.
But like really, I think for me, like kind of really like what the very first IPs or like art that I really fell in love with. Also, when I was really young, I read a bunch of comic like the Inca by Mobius.
Yeah,
so I read a lot of like also those like adult comics that are like not adult because they're saps, but like adult because there's like philosophy or like ethics and morals and
yeah, it doesn't have to have boobs for it to be
exactly. No, I'm just saying because like you know
yeah.
But like I read a lot of those that were also like Scoyton and what's his name, the other one, like they were like two architects that were drawing comics that are super beautiful, extremely intricate, and kind of like in that vibe of comics. Like I guess the American equivalent could be Dan Klaus a little bit in terms of like the intricacy of the style. But anyway, really, I'm just gonna like really reel it back in as like my number one was I like the trio of Shonen Jump. Like let's face it,
Oh,
like,
sure.
I was so into my trio was like Naruto, One Piece, Shaman King. I loved Shaman King. Shaman King was
Shaman King's great.
It's the bomb. And did you know that they just finally released it all back onto Comixology? Like now you can finally read it again.
Yeah, because I've been loving the Shonen Jump app. Like I've been tearing through a lot of, like I reread through all the Dragon Ball, and I have been reading One Piece. I'm almost caught up on One Piece, which is a feat.
I think I'm gonna give up. I love One Piece so much, but it's there's just too much. I can't commit anymore.
Okay, this is a side tangent, but I want to talk about this somewhere.
Okay.
I read through all. I'm pretty much caught up. I have like 10 chapters left, and it is incredibly long, and it doesn't have to be. Like there are huge swaths of plot that could have been cut or trimmed, and like especially this last arc, Wano. I don't know, when did you drop off?
I dropped off. Sorry, everyone. There's gonna be spoilers, but I guess they're really old spoilers, so it's fine. You know, it's like the big moment with a white beard.
Oh, the War of the Best or whatever.
Yeah, like that's kind of where I dropped off. Like
That's not a spoiler.
After like the Shippuden of One Piece, when
the time skip,
they all like get super strong. Like I was like, that's cool, and then I was just like, I'm done.
Hey, I mean, there's a slump there when they go to Fishman Island. Like it kind of got it. Yeah, that's the problem though. Is like I think everything before the time skip is pretty solid. I didn't like Skypiea at all, but everything else is pretty solid. But I think after the time skip, there's a lot of bloat, and every arc starts to feel really repetitive. Where it's like, here we are. This is Island. There's a bad guy. There's a princess. She's the most beautiful woman in all the land. And then there's this guy. And there's a devil proof fire. And then he has like a whole team of people that you're going to have to learn about, even though they're not important. And it's like, it gets to be too much. And Wano was really, really bad about that, where they introduced so much stuff up front. And so far, very little of it has actually mattered. Because at the end of, like, now it's in kind of moving towards a climax. And it's like, the characters who you figured would be important, and that's the Straw Hats, and everyone else, I don't even know why we spent so much time with them, because they've already kind of fallen away. Anyway,
I feel like for me, One Piece was a huge influence, mostly in terms of tone. What I loved was there's just like some brutal like honesty with like the raw feelings of the characters, and they're just, and Luffy for me, like that's the thing that I have kind of thought about recently. Like I've always wanted to be a shonen protagonist. Like I love Sailor Moon, she's great, like, but I would want to be friends with Bunny, like, but I don't want to be Bunny. I want to be Luffy because he's so optimistic and nothing ever brings him down. I want to be Naruto because Naruto, he works so hard and he will like get beat up like all the time into the ground, and he will still like stand up. Like that's like, for me, that's the kind of person that I want to be. And
I agree.
Yo is the best because he's not your typical
from a Shaman King.
Yeah, It's not your typical shonen protagonist. Like Yo is great because all of them are oblivious. The three of them are oblivious, which I love because I'm like, it's like that's kind of like the crazy part of them, I guess. That like any other person would just give up, but they don't, and I think that's super inspiring. And Yo, on top of that, he's got this like super like wise, like beyond his years attitude of like,
Yeah.
things are all right, things are gonna be okay, like in a super chill way. I think, okay, my theory, and I'm pretty sure it's true,
They're very
is
Buddhist.
that Yo is a stoner, but like weed is super illegal in
Yeah.
Japan. It's super illegal, so it's like he could never say it, but I'm like, he's such a stoner, and I'm like,
Yeah, Yo's a stoner. Yo smokes weed.
I'm like so into that, like a stoner protagonist. That's like, yes, please. And
Yeah.
you know, it's like
His whole goal is like, I want to become the Shaman King so that I never have to do anything again.
I know, and he's Taurus like me. I'm like, I love him so much. I really, yeah, that's
Shaman King's great. Oh, yeah. So I was saying, like, yeah, I was reading the app and I was bummed that because Shaman King wasn't Shonen Jump, but I guess there was some
it was Shonen Jump, but it's just like there was like a deal, like they couldn't agree, the publishing companies, between between the Japanese Shonen Jump and like American Shonen Jump. I don't know what happened, but like there was like a deal that fell through, and then no one could publish it in the US for years.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's that it exists somewhere because I do want to reread it, so that's good. I didn't know that it was on Comixology.
Dude, I'm so happy you're gonna read it again, because I'm like, I'm gonna read it again too. Like I started reading it again. It's so good.
They're making that new anime too, which is cool. So yeah, keep going.
So I was like inspired by all those. Like what I really love the manga. I didn't really watch anime. I mostly read manga. So I really love the art style of Naruto, One Piece, and Shaman King, because they all have like a very strong identity in terms of drawings. Like Naruto, he's kind of like he was inspired by Otomo.
Mm-hmm.
Kishimoto was really inspired by Otomo, which I also love. And then Oda and I forgot his name.
Who are you trying to think of?
The Shaman King guy. I forgot his name.
I don't remember either. Shit.
They both worked under the same mangaka, who was like a gag mangaka. So that's why they have like a similar kind of like a little bit more cartoony, like slash a little bit more like video gamey kind of drawing style.
Yeah.
Which I really miss. Like that was my favorite. Kind of like Dragon Ball. Like I love Dragon Ball. I loved it as a kid, but I really came back to it later when I was probably like 25. Like I realized how good his drawings were.
It's really good.
He's really amazing.
Yeah, I grew up with Dragon Ball Z, and like that was my, when you're a kid and you're watching Dragon Ball Z, you're just like, wow, punching.
Right.
But and it's just like schlock and it's silly. But once that app came out, actually I think before that, yeah, there was a moment where I read through all of Dragon Ball and then through all of Dragon Ball Z, and I even went into Dragon Ball Super. And like, I mean, it gets worse. Like it gets worse and worse. But the original run of Dragon Ball is awesome, and I think that like it ends perfectly because there's like actual stakes and like it feels like a climax, and it ends on like, it feels like it ends. But then Dragon Ball Z, it's kind of its own thing, and everyone knows that.
Right.
But it starts to really like drag. And
yeah, Dragon Ball is the best part. Like I feel like even Dragon Ball Z, you could argue that it's still good, but for me, I'm just all about Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I agree, and I think all the best stuff that he does is all very like charming and has a sense of humor about itself, and like I love Koa. I don't know if you've read Koa.
I still have to read it. I haven't read it.
Koa's great. That's like one of my favorites standalone like graphic novel, I guess, especially definitely manga, but maybe of all time, because I've reread it a lot. And like Sandland's really good. Sandland has a nice mix of like,
I like Sandland a lot.
Yeah, it's a nice mix of charm and action. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of Toriyama in your work.
Also, a thing that I struggle with a lot in terms of like my influences is that I did a lot of life drawing. Like even as I started as a professional artist, I was lucky enough that like studios that I worked at offered. There was a studio I worked at. I didn't really like the show I was on, but the crew was so great. Everyone was super nice, and there was this showrunner on another show at that studio who was always organizing weekly these life drawing sessions that were so cheap because we were just paying the model directly, and the models that he knew, they were all these like amazing either like dancers or like sometimes people from the circus, or like sometimes they're professional models. It was just so great because we only did poses for up to 5 minutes. So for 2 hours, we would draw these models from 1 to 5 minutes tops. And it really got me to a level of like draftsmanship that made me feel comfortable drawing fast. Because before that, I was like, I can sort of draw, I can manage this thing. But after I did this for a year, I was like, okay, like, yeah, I got this. Like, it made me feel more confident. And I'm really thankful for that. But the thing too is that like my drawing has also like this realistic-ish quality to it, I guess. And also
there's a life to it. Yeah.
Since I really like also a lot of seinen manga, I
Sure.
love like I Am a Hero. It's one of my favorite. I love Real by Inoue. Inoue is one of my all-time favorite artists. He's very realistic in terms of style.
I can see that.
I love. I mean, it's funny because I always think about manga. I don't know. I love manga because for me, it's kind of like the best mix of entertainment and authorship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, I think it's just so good. And like Urasawa also is really good. The 20th Century Boys. I love the way he draws. He's amazing.
Man, that's been on my list. I think after I finish One Piece, I'm gonna go through that because I keep hearing about it.
It's beautifully drawn. It keeps you like really hooked from the beginning till the end, and all the characters are amazing. I don't know. It's such a good manga.
That's on my list. I don't remember if we ever talked about it, but have you read any of Inio Asano's stuff, like Goodnight Poon Poon?
Oh yeah. I love Poon Poon. Poon Poon. I read it kind of recently.
Oh, we did talk about it because we were both depressed after we read it.
Right, and I tweeted about it. I was okay. Anyone who's listening to this, content warning. Poon Poon is definitely not for anyone under 18. It's extremely dark. It goes really, really, really dark. I think it's probably one of the darkest things that I've read.
Yeah, it's up there.
But the art is beautiful. It's an amazing story. For me, I think I needed to read that because I felt understood.
Yeah.
You know, it deals with the main protagonist that has depression and deals with a bunch of toxic relationships. All his relationships are toxic.
Yeah, and it like takes a toll on him. Like it warps the way that he is and like really messes with how he handles relationships. Yeah, I think that it like the first time I read it, it didn't quite click. Like I liked it, but it didn't. I don't know. I didn't fully get it. And then I reread it when I was just feeling really down, and it was nice to see somebody else going through the same kind of emotions. And like, there's some parts in there that, it's brutal. And if you're already like, if you don't think you'll be able to handle sort of the pitfalls, like the depths that it goes into the psyche, then don't read it. But for me, it was what I needed to like, be like, okay, I'm feeling the same things. And it was very cathartic to just kind of like, let myself feel that stuff.
I wonder, because I kind of bullied one of my friends into reading it recently.
Yeah.
And she couldn't find volume 5. It ran out of print.
Maybe. Yeah, I think that'd be weird if people were only getting one volume because of something that happens. But yeah, it's dark, but it's great. But all of Inio Asano's stuff is like that. It's all very like it probes the human psyche, and God, the art is like awesome. Like it's just, he does a lot of photo referencing, and I think straight up just like posterizing of photos.
You can see him work on there's a YouTube series,
Manban. Yeah,
you can see him work. Yeah, it's great. I was like, okay, that makes me feel better. You do take pictures, you do have something to help you out with this, because I was like, this art is insane.
Yes, yeah, it's funny because I don't know if you're the same way, but like I don't like showing my process because I feel like it's like it would show just how much I use shortcuts and like reuse stuff, but I like to see that. So it's like I probably shouldn't have that shame, because I think everyone just wants the validation of like, oh, it's okay to like not, it's okay to take shortcuts. It's okay to like find easier ways of doing things.
I agree with that.
For some reason, I just like can't get over that hurdle. But you post a lot of like rough work too, which I don't.
I do because I'm so lazy, Gene. I'm a lazy artist. I'm just like, this is good enough to post. And
You are the furthest thing from lazy that I can. You have done a webcomic like consistently for the past like 2 years, I think. You're always making something, which is insane. But I think that's.
no, I was gonna say like about the, I don't know if we want to get back onto a more like streamlined version of the interview, but I was gonna say for me, one of the ways that I can kind of fill in the gap of like the expectation of you as an artist at school versus the expectation of you as a craftsman in the industry is by making stuff for myself in my free time, because that's where I can get back in touch with the auteur side of myself. Like if I write, if I draw from A to B a story, and I feel like I'm honing in my craft and I'm putting my personal point of view and myself in my work, when sometimes it depends on the show, when sometimes in the show that I'm working on, I don't have as much freedom, then I need to compensate for that during my free time on my personal work.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was saying that's why I draw a lot, because if I don't, then I sometimes I get really sad.
Well, I think that's what it takes. It's like if it means enough to you to always be drawing, then you're probably going to be successful at what you do, because it's like it's a part of your happiness to do that. Yeah, I've known people in my life who like wanted to either make a career out of art or whatever, but they just like clearly they didn't want it that bad because they never drew anything. Right. So it's like, well, if you can't make it a part of your like, it's like breathing, like you should just want to do it. If it feels like a chore, then maybe it's not for you. Because and it's funny for me, like just as a tangent, like I don't really like drawing. Like I want to tell stories, but so I've been on this journey recently to try to figure out how to do that, like to make it easy for me to put out a story consistently. Right. But without having to like sit in front of a desk and draw for hours a day, because I get burnt out. But it seems like for you it comes more naturally and it's almost like a release.
I feel like there's like a little bit of both. It's like there's definitely like the release part where it's like, yes, I need to do this because then I will feel happy. But also it's just kind of like working out, you know, like before you work out, it's like, I don't want to do this. And once you start it and you get kind of like that adrenaline, or I don't know, like, is it the dopamine? Yes. Or whichever neurotransmitter is serotonin? That's probably the one. It's kind of similar to that where like it happens to me. Like when before running, I'm like, I don't want to run. And I start running and I'm like listening to my boppin' playlist and I'm like, boppin'. This is great. And drawing is the same. Sometimes I'm just like bored and I don't know what to do, so I'll just draw. Because sometimes I'm like, I feel bad that I'm just like scrolling on Twitter and I'm like, what am I doing in my life? So I'm just like, I should rather just draw.
Yeah.
And then there's times when I'm just like, I have this image or I have this feeling that I really want to draw it. And sometimes I also just kind of have like a theme or an idea and I want to make like multiple drawings over that theme or idea. And that gets me excited. And kind of like the cringe-tobers that I'm doing right now. Like I'm really excited about exploring a new art style. Like having these prompts is a really good way for me to explore a new drawing style. Like I'm trying like new color palette, new kind of like trying out a little bit more my like realistic drawing and see if I like doing that or not. And see if that would be like a good thing for me to have for comics. I don't know.
Yeah, you're challenging yourself. Yeah, I mean, I think anything worth doing becomes a discipline after a while. Like if you're not constantly working at it, then like, why are you doing it?
And also just like, I was talking with a friend about that, but I finally found a goal for myself, which is sometimes it's kind of hard in art because you can feel like you're kind of aimless. Like you're like, I'm drawing, I love drawing, but I don't see where I'm going with this. And well, one of the goals can be like to land a job in animation, of course. But like once you did land the job, like what now, you know, like once you did get the storyboard job, once you did finally get the gig that you were dreaming of, like then what now, you know, like you're always kind of like climbing that mountain and you're like, what am I supposed to do? And then I realized, well, I want to tell stories. I want to draw comics. I feel like I'm more able to write and come up with stories. And kind of like you were saying earlier, I don't want to spend so much time drawing. So I was like, how can I draw fast? How can I draw in the way that I can still express what I'm feeling, but that doesn't take up too much time? And that's kind of when I was thinking of Miyazaki, because, okay, that sounds like really weird flex, but okay. I see his comics and I see how he draws, and he's just so fast, just a little bit of color, and then there's like a rough quality to it. He's drawn so much that he can afford to just draw that fast.
Right.
But the drawings are kind of loose, and they're just the right amount. Like if you really look at them, they're just the right amount of information. There's nothing that's not necessary. Every single color, every single line is where it should be, and that's always just enough to get out of it. So that's kind of my goal, is to get to that point of like raw efficiency, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're getting there. It's like an energy, I think, to your comics and everything you do, that it's like, yeah, I think that comes with confidence too. It's like when you've drawn something enough times, you can figure out what is like unnecessary information. And I think most people kind of just skim over something they look at. It's almost like a human face. Like when we look at ourselves and we see all the flaws, we see all the pimples and stuff, but like people are, when they look at a face, they're probably only just seeing your like eyes and your mouth maybe. And I feel like a lot of art is the same way, where people look at it and they just kind of take it in and they don't notice all the flaws unless they really start to study it.
Especially with social media, because people are just scrolling so fast, they barely are going to spend more than 2 seconds looking at your picture.
And so it's important to keep that in mind. Yeah, I'm very impressed with how you manage to constantly put stuff out. Like you don't stop to overthink, and you don't stop to like perfect something. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because I think I see a lot of artists, myself included, is like struggling with the perfectionism and the like, you freeze up before you end up doing anything, but you just make stuff. Like you just make comics.
I think for my part, like that, I used to be like you, but like to a degree that I wasn't drawing anymore. Like I was so scared of drawing. I was so scared of trying anything, because I was like, if I even just lay a single line on paper, it's going to be wrong. It's going to be so terrible. And also because when I was in Gobelin, something that I don't often talk about, but being in Gobelin was like really difficult for me, because I was the small fish in the big pond. Like, you know, like when you're in middle school or whatever, even in high school, nobody's drawing, so you're the big fish in the little pond. But like when I finally started going to art school, I was like, oh, that's what people have been doing this whole time. And actually, when I got in Gobelin, when I finally passed the entrance exam, people did say about me, like, oh, she shouldn't have gotten in, like she's not good enough. And to some extent, like obviously, like the part of me that was like the self-defense mechanism was like, well, F all of you, like I'm blah blah blah, like I can do this, like I got in. But like if you're being real, yeah, it's true. Like there were a lot of people out there who tried to get in and were much more talented artists than I was, and I don't really know how that happened. Probably, I don't know, maybe I swooned the interview, because the way it goes is like you do this like crazy like Naruto entrance exam, and then you have like an interview with the team. I think they saw that I was really passionate about animation, because I made all these like little flash animation for Newgrounds. I showed it to them. I can't believe I showed it to them.
Well, yeah, you were passionate. That's what matters. I think that like to expect somebody going in to, I understand the need for entrance exams for, you know, a prestigious art school, but I also feel like if you're testing people on like how good they are already and not how good they're gonna be, then you could really hurt your like student body. I don't know. It's because I feel like I've definitely known people who, when they started college, were really good, but then they didn't learn anything. Like they didn't try that hard. They just, you know, but somebody like who's coming in and they are eager to learn and get better, like that probably goes further. Somebody like you who was just like excited to learn and get better.
Well, for me, it was kind of tough though, because everyone had like, I was one of the youngest in the class. There was only one person who was younger than me. And everyone had been in art school for at least like 3 years prior. So you had all these kids that were already extremely good draftsmen. And there was kind of, and in Gobelin, there was, at least at the time, an environment, you're always kind of like gauging each other. You're always kind of like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what are you drawing? Like, kind of like, you know, kind of like who's better? Kind of like, what's your power? Like in Dragon Ball, like you with the little visor, like, yeah. Oh, you're only level 53. Well, I'm 71.
Right.
I'm obviously this is a caricature. It wasn't exactly like that, but and there was this amazing artist in my class who drove everybody crazy because, and he was pretty much the best. I think for me, one of the best experience looking back being in Gobelin was to get to know him because he was so amazing, so good at drawing, and he was drawing all the time, like all the time. There was never a moment he wasn't drawing, and I was just like, and one day I was like, wow, you're working all the time. And he was like, working? What are you talking about? I'm like, well, you're always drawing in your sketchbook. He was like, oh, that's not work. And then I was like, oh, okay. Like, and it's true. Like when you were like looking at his sketchbook, he was just playing around. He was just trying so many shapes. He was just drawing things. You could see that the way he was drawing was just him trying out stuff, just trying to understand, trying to the volume or just the shapes or like what's appealing to him. And yeah, he's a beast. And maybe you follow him on social media. His username is Job. And
I don't think I do, but yeah.
I'll just write it out so people can like
give him a shout out. Yeah.
Jonathan Job. He's so good. He's basically amazing.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing that I've had to also come to realize. I've gone through weird phases with drawing and sketching where like when I was a kid, I would just usually I would like watch something and I would like it, and then I would just kind of copy it, and I would like come up with my own version of it, but act as if it was totally my original IP, my original character. Do not steal.
But it's great to copy though. Copying is
no, I don't think it's a bad thing. That's good. I think that there's a weird shame about that with a lot of like young artists. And it's like, no, man, that's just fine. Like as long as you don't, your sketchbook is your sketchbook. Like as long as you're not claiming that anything is yours, somebody else's stuff is yours, like you're free to copy and trace as much as you want. There's nothing that's stopping you, and it's the best way to learn.
Right.
And I think a lot of us do start that way. But then I kind of got too polished where like my sketchbooks were like I would sign my sketchbook. This is stupid.
Oh, that's so interesting. It's so funny.
I would sign my sketchbook pages because I was like making finished pieces, and I thought that that's like what you did. But I had to unlearn that behavior, and then now I'll go through phases. Like for weeks I won't sketch at all, and then I'll have an idea that I want to get out, and it's like you were saying, like I just want to try things, and so my pages are just scribbles. Like it's one character's like head shape or something just over and over again until I figure out how to make it the most like appealing and the most efficient.
It's funny that you talk about signing pages and that you used to do that, because I'm like the opposite. I would never sign anything, and even now it's really hard for me to remember to sign something. And often when I sell original art like at conventions or like online, like if someone doesn't tell me like, can you sign it please, I usually will forget, which kind of is, I'm sorry if you ever bought art for me and I didn't sign it.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't know. It is kind of a weird thing that you're expected to have like a signature, because the fact that it's your art already is like should be a signature enough.
Right.
But I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, we've talked about your influences. We talked about sort of like how you got your start. You've been doing a entry for a manga contest, right? And that's
right. That one was crazy because I actually tried that one out. I tried the jump contest the first time when I was in Japan, because I had like a friend in Japan that I was doing language exchange with. So we would meet up once a week, try to speak in Japanese for half an hour, and we'd try to speak in English for half an hour. And eventually I was like, oh, I love making comics, I love drawing. And he was like, oh, we should try that contest. And we tried. It was a lot of work. We got nothing out of it. So when the opportunity for me to try out all on my own arose again, I was like, oh, I should just like try it out. Let's see how much I learned about story and making comics. There's still like I only had like 2 months, I guess, to make it. It's 54 pages. I'm really excited about the story that I managed to write, because like it's a metaphor for a lot of things that I kind of went through in my life.
Sure.
Without like going too deep into it. But like one of the main themes is like Simon, the main character, knows that he's not quite normal, and he's trying to overcompensate by being extra normal. Like during the story, he finds out why he's not normal, and then he kind of like deals with that. So that's his personal character arc. And then he has a friend who has like a small arc as well. And there's a big fight because it's a shonen manga, so you gotta have a big fight. I love shonen. I think for the longest time, I wanted to draw and write shonen stories. I don't know if that's 100% what I want to do anymore.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's also just like in terms of tone, I'm trying to figure out exactly like what I'm like gravitating towards in terms of stories. I have so many stories, so many ideas and stories that I want to write and tell. I just have to focus and just like really, because it's like, you know, you think about all the ideas, you write your Google Doc, it's like 50 pages and you're like, this is great. And then you have to actually make like a pitch Bible out of this. And it's so much work because it's like, you have to rewrite the same sentence like a billion times. And that's like, this is still not right. How do I get the feeling of my idea in just like a small paragraph?
It's the worst. It's so hard.
That's kind of what I'm struggling with right now, but I think it's a good exercise. I think it's really, it's a good exercise to really, really, really understand your idea to the core and be so, you know it so well that you're able to use the minimum amount of words.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the process is tough and tiring, but it's really worth it. Like when you're like done with it, it's like, I did this.
You and I have both gone through development hell.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's like on one hand it's exhausting and horrible and will suck the life out of you, but on the other hand, like I have learned how to like boil down an idea to its base. And like sometimes when people show me their pitch Bibles and stuff, like I already know how executives are going to see it and what kind of notes they're going to have, because a lot of the time people will start with a lot of like world building stuff, but then they won't flesh out the characters because they think that is obvious, and it's not. Like it's the hardest thing. And also like, yeah, executives want an idea that is just like a sentence, because they're going to have to pitch it to their bosses, and their bosses are going to have to pitch to their bosses. And so like, it's stuff just gets lost along the way. And like the easier it is to understand your idea, the better. So yeah, it is. It's this weird thing where you have to keep rewriting the same stuff, but every time you do, it like gets a little clearer and you figure out what is not important and what is like, what is kind of frivolous information. All of the lore building is unnecessary, guys. All of the like, this is how the magic works in my story. This is 3 pages about the magic. This is how this side character that is barely in the show. And it's like, hey, this is not important.
And you know what's funny? Because when I actually did try out for the Shonen Jump contest, so one of my favorite mangaka, so also the main reason why I wanted to try out for the Jump contest is that a lot of my heroes are going to be judging on it. So you're going to have Inoue-san, Oda-san.
Oh wow, okay.
I know, right? There's also going to be Toriyama, which I'm like, oh my god, please look at my pages. If they were to look at my pages, I would just like, I don't even have to win. I just want us to hopefully.
No shit, yeah.
And Inoue said try to keep a setting that is very simple and close to what people know in everyday life. And I was like, this is so smart. This is so smart for even TV shows, because it's like the crazier the world, the harder it's going to be for your audience to connect with it. So like for a fantasy world, for example, it's easier to keep it closer to just a regular fantasy, like fairy tale kind of world, because then it's like people kind of like know what to expect. And then you can build up on that like throughout the show, I guess. But like when you're pitching it, it's just like easier to keep it like so simple, or like even if it just starts like, I don't know, kids going into school, and then you can kind of work in the like weird elements into that, I guess. But that's just like my point of view and just something that I thought of. I was like, that's an interesting thought. My master said that, so I believe him.
Yeah. What was Loud House the first animation job that you had out of Gobelin, or because you did some like freelance stuff, right, between the two?
So kind of what happened was like after I graduated from Gobelin, I was 21 when I graduated. I did have like a little bit of a moment when I couldn't find anything, and I was so anxious, and I was at the like, I took so many tests, dude. I took so many tests, and none of them worked out. And it was really hard because everybody in my school, like some of them were already working for studios, like a lot of them like right out of school, like they got hired by a bunch of other studios, and I was just like, oh, what am I doing wrong? And I ended up finding this job offer on this like dingy little like forum for like a show that nobody wanted to work on because the studio that was making it, nobody knew about it. It was just like an up and coming studio, and the schedule was crazy and pay was not that great for like compared to any other French job, like if you like it was better paid than retail, for example, but like compared to the animation standards, it was really not well paid.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, well, this is I was ready to do anything. I was ready to do, I don't know, like any kind of job that was going to take me. And I got lucky that it was a storyboard job.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of work because we were given 7-minute episodes to board in 2 weeks, and we had to do the animatic. So we did have to build in the animatic as we were going, and we had to board to the voice track. And this show, I later learned, I'm not going to say the name of the show, mostly because I don't know. I mean, I guess you can find all this information online, but like I later found out that the production budget was 1.5 million.
Okay.
And we did 106 episodes. 106 episodes.
Wow.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? 7 minutes. And we did that. We achieved that because we were 4 board artists. All of us were basically directors because we were roughing storyboarding, doing revisions, and doing the animatic, and like having the voices. So we were doing all that, and we only had one supervising animator who was supervising all the animation. We only had one background person because they built the whole set in 3D, and she ended up just doing all the captures for layouts. So all the layouts were done in 3D, and we were working with China. We had a couple other people in house, but it was such a skeleton crew. We were barely 20 people, barely.
Man. So you just worked to the bone.
Yeah. Honestly, it was a really tough time because I even remember telling the line producer, I was like, I don't know how long I can stay on this show. Right. I don't know how long I'm gonna last. She was like, don't worry, it's okay. Everybody says that. But it was like so shonen. It was just like, yeah. Like, just like you're gonna get beat up, but you're gonna get back up. It was just like so dramatic. But like there was like such camaraderie though. Like everyone, I loved everyone. And all of my friends, like all of the other board artists now, they're all like show running and friends, which I'm like, it's really, that's like also a difficult part of like moving from France to LA because I was offered to be a co-EP on a show multiple times in France. And I had to turn it down multiple times because I was like, I gotta make it here. I gotta make it in LA. But like, it's sometimes it's tough because it's like, well, all my friends were like show running and like in France, and like I had that opportunity, but I had to turn it down because I think I have to stay here for a little bit.
Do you feel like, I mean, that's a loaded question, I guess, but do you feel like it's worth it to stay in LA to try to, because I mean, obviously you have a life here and like you have a partner and everything. And so like, is it a personal need? Like you just like being in LA, or do you feel like you can accomplish more with your career in LA?
I think I can accomplish more with my career in LA. I think here it's way more difficult. I could probably pitch shows more easily in France now and get something picked up. But like if you get a show if you get a show picked up here in LA, everybody in the world is going to see it. If you get a show picked up in France, only a couple countries are going to see it. And that's the harsh reality of it, is that everybody in France knows all of the American content. We all know. That was actually a funny thing because for me, when I was a little kid, like when I was like 12 and my dad kind of broke out the news that we were going to move to America, I was just kind of like, America, okay. Like all I cared about was Japan because of manga. And I was kind of talking to my friends in school, and I was like, yeah, apparently we're going to move to America. And this kid kind of overheard us, and I was like, oh yeah, we're in America. And then I said, Los Angeles, California. And he's like, well, I know where LA is. Like, and I was like, I don't know. Like, it's the city. I guess it's famous city. But like, funny. I'm like talking about this anecdote because everyone in France watches American TV.
Yeah.
There is also French TV. There is also like French, like the equivalent of like telenovela in France.
Yeah.
But like most of the movies, if you go to a theater in France, it's like it's going to be like 80% American movies, and TV is the same. Yeah, it's a lot. So I'm like, if I want to make something, and I want to make something kind of like bold and daring, I think I have to be here. That's kind of,
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, I'm kind of hoping that through through the quarantine and through just like the Pandora's box being opened of like everyone's working from home and like clearly we're equipped to do that. I'm hoping that it opens up the doors to hiring people from outside of LA and letting people work from outside of LA. It's already kind of happening because so many people are just kind of like bailing and like, all right, I don't need to be here anymore. Bye. And just living with somewhere else. And so I'm hoping that expands because I don't think it's right that we are all forced to be in this gross, nasty, like brown city that everyone is mean in. It's expensive. Like it's like not very, it's not, I think it probably used to be a little more pleasant and it's just not.
California is pretty great though in the way that you have access to so much. Like you could so easily go to the beach. You could so easily go to the mountain. You can hike. You can
I do like that.
I mean, there's a lot of like upsides. There's a lot of downsides as well. But like, I think overall, honestly, I think California is pretty great. Like, you can go skiing, you can go snowboarding if you want.
You are way more optimistic about it.
I mean, I know it is extremely pricey though. But at the same time, okay, everybody listening to this podcast, I'm gonna give you a French
pro tip
life thing. Anyhow, like, okay, like so many people are gonna hate me, but hey, listen. When I was in France, like going to Starbucks was considered a treat. Like it was something that I could do only for like, wow, you work really hard, or like, wow, I'm gonna have this nice coffee with my friend. Like it's $5 coffee. What? Like, you know, like you don't get like a $5 coffee every day. So it's like in France, like you always you make your own coffee. You make your own food. You just like, well, obviously Paris, you can afford not to have a car. Here, I don't own a car because I'm a hippie. I'm not only just a dirty hippie, but I'm also.
You are a hippie.
I am a hippie. I dress at Goodwill. You guys, you don't have to go buy new clothes. Goodwill is the best. You find so much good stuff. Like, I barely spend more.
There's like apps and stuff now too, like Depop, where you can like get used clothing, but it's like, I don't know, it's cheaper.
Hey, I get it. When I tell my friends that I buy my shoes at Goodwill, they're like, you're gonna get fungus. But hey, you know what? I'd never spend more than $20 on a new pair of shoes. So.
Hey, you've had some nice kicks before that you gotta get.
I find the best, like Nikes. I find so many nice Nikes for like $20, dude. It's like, I mean, hey, I'm just saying, make your own coffee, shop at Goodwill, and you can afford rent in LA. It's probably a lie. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think that like rent is achievable, but to actually like buy a place is
don't buy in California.
Pretty much impossible.
I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. I think we gotta wait a little bit.
Maybe. But anyway, that's boring adult shit.
Yeah, edit out. Snore.
Boring. Cut out all the boring adult shit. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything else you wanted to bring up?
I think let me try to think if there's like something that I kind of want to talk about. I think I kind of wanted to talk about how I got my first LA gig, because here's the thing, like I graduated from Gobelin, I got this first job that was insane, then I got another job at another studio where that was the life drawing studio. That was great. After that, every year I would go to the Annecy Festival, and every year I would show my portfolio and I would keep looking for new jobs and kind of like putting my name out there until eventually this studio hired me on a show that I think was eventually aired in Canada. And every single show that I worked on, I learned so much. Like I got lucky that all of my head of story / directors took the time to sit down with me, redline all of my boards. Sometimes there were boards that I would turn in that would come back. 80% of it was like red lines. Only 3 of my shots were like left intact. But that's how you learn. And I feel like I learned so much on the job. After a couple of these years of working, that's kind of when I thought, well, I got to go to Japan. Like I got to do that like working holiday thing, because if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And at first I wanted to go to Australia because I was like, oh, this is comfortable. Like I can speak enough English that I could probably kind of like make it work. Then the person I was with at the time, like they were just not really all that jazzed about Australia. So I was like, okay, what about Japan? And that was a yes. So we went to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about me working freelance from Japan, that was actually kind of hard because I didn't know if the studios were going to keep working with me. It was really easy to get the visa because all you have to do is be like, show them your bank account, and they're like, okay, you have enough money. Like, you're not going to become a homeless person.
Oh,
in
really?
Japan.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of like the basic thing. Like, obviously, I'm kind of making it more cartoony than it really is, but that's one of the main things that they want to make sure is like you're not going to go broke in Japan. I went there and I was able to keep freelancing, and I was able to create my own schedule, which was the best because every day from like in the morning, all the mornings were only for me. So I actually managed to sign up to a gym in Japan, which is crazy because I had never been to a gym in my entire life, and I was so scared because I was like, I was in a really bad physical shape. Like, not that I was like, not that I looked bad or anything, but like, I was just like, I couldn't do a single push up. Like, I was like always out of breath.
Oh
like,
my
I was
God.
just like, yeah, it was just like really sad. And I was like, I gotta do something. So I subscribed to this gym. And it was also so great because the apartment that I was renting at the time, during the winter, it got so cold. It got so cold, and taking a shower was the worst. So I could go to the gym, work out, and then use the nice showers in the gym. That was the best. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, going to the gym kind of got me hooked on Billboard music, like no, not Billboard, but top chart music. Because before that, I was kind of like, I kind of like had still like this thing that you kind of like that disease that you get from friends where it's like, oh, anything entertainment related, kind of like top chart music, that's bad. Like, like Coachella music, boo.
Yeah.
But going to the gym, I was like, I really started enjoying like these like like the songs that get you pumped to go get through the day. And so I would work out, and then I would go to a coffee shop and just like draw for myself. And so I was really active on social media. I would post a lot on Tumblr at the time.
Yeah, you posted a lot on there.
Yeah, I did, because I was like, and I made those little comics about my daily life in Japan. And that actually first got the attention of a show at Cartoon Network, getting the show, like, and then I boasted about it on Facebook. I was like, Cartoon Network Burbank wants me to test for one of their shows.
Back when that's exciting.
And what's his face? Well, I'll just say his name. Chris Savino at the time, he followed me on social media, and he followed me on Facebook. And when he saw that, he was like, oh snap, like I wanted you to work on my show. And I was like, well, give me a test.
Yeah.
I was just like, who cares? This is the computer. I'm behind a screen. Give me a test. And he did. And he did give me a test, which for me was like, wow, I was just bluffing. I didn't think he would actually go forward with that.
That's what it takes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I tested and I got it. I didn't get the Cartoon Network gig, which is understandable because I don't think I was the right fit, like in terms of writing. I got the Loud House gig, and I started working from Japan, which was so great because those are details I should probably not be saying on this podcast. Should I? Should we edit it out or something? Like, I was just able to turn in the boards like way faster than.
I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah. And the good thing about that was that like I could do the work, and then I had all this free time, and then I could travel. And it was so great because I was just like, I saw so much of Japan thanks to the Loud House.
I mean, that's great. Like, that's the ideal life, right? It's just like,
right.
You have a job that doesn't consume you, that lets you still do that. That's something that I've like come to appreciate, is that it's like, hey man, work is work, and like it's good to be passionate about what you're doing, but there's a lot of artists that just get so like consumed by their job, and it's like they don't vacation, they don't take breaks, they don't go anywhere, and it's like, well, you're gonna burn out, and not just burn out, like you're gonna end up hating your job, and like that's not fun.
Honestly, it's really tough. Like in France, the deadlines are so tough that multiple times, actually before I got the Loud House gig, I was seriously considering dropping out of animation because I was like, that's too much. It's too, because you're just constantly grinding because the pay is not that great and you're just working all the time. The only time that you have left is weekends and sometimes not even. And it was just like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, because like I was saying, I don't know if I can keep doing this because I'm not working for myself. I'm not drawing for myself. Like I barely have any time to do all that. It was so emotionally taxing because I was like, I want to draw for myself also. fortunately, I got the Loud House gig. I moved back to France. Things got a little crazy, and I got done a little bit soul searching, and then I actually convinced, because at the time they tried to get me a visa. When I was in Japan, they tried to get me the H-1B visa, and that didn't go through because the H-1B visa now, it's really hard to get it because there's too many people applying for it. So I just kind of, once again, bluffed, I guess, or like did a poker move. And I was like, hey, Chris, what if you guys were trying to get me the O visa? The O1 visa is more difficult to get because you have to prove that you're an outstanding, it's basically like the Nobel Prize visa, which is like crazy because when you're an artist, you probably have imposter syndrome.
Yep.
So I was like, I really don't think I'm that good, but I have to prove to the American government that I'm an outstanding artist, which is not the best spot to be in, but I managed to do it. I asked a lot of people to help me out, and they did, and they wrote really nice letters about me, and it ended up working out. And then I moved to LA, got on the Loud House, and met all of you guys.
Yeah.
Loud House was one of the best experience for me. I mean, it was very similar to the way French shows are run.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really straight to the point. It was like really easy to understand what we were supposed to turn in. And the scripts were so good. The scripts were good. They were like really solid. It's like you read those scripts and you're like, no matter what I turn in as a board artist, it's still going to be a solid episode. And that was such a load off my chest because in France, it was very rare for me to get scripts that were like that. There was often like scripts that you had to kind of touch up to make work, to kind of understand the character's motivation, yada, yada, yada. So that was so fun working on the Loud House. That was a blessing.
Yeah, it was a very smooth production and like long lasting. I mean, shit, we all ended up just leaving because we wanted to do other things, and it's still going as of this recording. And so it's like, it was a really good first animation job for sure.
Yeah. And then I went to Cartoon Network as a storyboard supervisor, and then I went on to Thundercats, Thundercats for me was the most fulfilling experience creatively in terms of like in the animation industry. In the animation industry, Thundercats was the most fulfilling experience because as a board artist, I could do whatever I wanted, which in terms of not like I had to follow the script obviously, but like in terms of camera and like creativity, it was the best. Like we could just try things. Because I love Loud House, but obviously in order to kind of keep the show in budget and stuff, like you did have like technical restrictions, which I think is a very smart thing to do when you're running a show. But on Thundercats, it was just like, do whatever you want. And that's like, yeah, you're like, I felt like a child in a candy store. Like, oh really? I can do up shots, down shots. I can do camera moves. I can animate camera moves.
As somebody who had to do the backgrounds for your episodes, you really liked those fucking up shots, and every time
it
was like, oh, I gotta do 3-point perspective. Thanks, Violaine.
Hey, I'm just making you better artists.
It did make me. Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned how to draw 3-point perspective because of you. So
I'm the mentor here.
Yeah, you're the mentor. You're like scribbles, your board scribbles. I had to decipher.
Yeah, it's true that like I do admit that like sometimes I'm like, wow, those boards that I turned in were pretty rough, but hey, it worked.
Yeah, that was what was expected at the time. Like that was the nice thing about doing boards, I think, on that show too. From what I never did boards, but it seemed like it was okay to be a little bit loose.
It was definitely, I mean, from my perspective, it was definitely okay to turn in something a little bit loose. I know a lot of the board artists turned in boards that were extremely clean, and there was a couple times when I was like, do I have to do that? Do I have to do that? But like, I'm telling you, like, I just like doing things kind of rough. So every time that, like, I'm only going to turn in something extremely clean if like someone asks me.
Yeah, I think
hey,
that's
can
a
you
good,
turn
yeah.
this like clean? Yeah. Because I'm like, I just like keeping things rough. Oh, one of the really crazy things about moving to LA was like, it was the first time in my life I had to pitch my boards. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done. Because at the time, when I moved to LA, I was really not confident about my English. Like, I could definitely speak English, but I had a terrible accent that I still kind of have, but now you can hear it a lot less than at the time.
I don't think it was ever that bad, but I understand, like, yeah, when you
I was like so self-conscious, dude. I was so self-conscious. I was just like pitching in front of a room of people and trying to make them laugh, and I'm like, and because like the biggest thing for me was like when you speak French for a long time, French is a very like monotone kind of language. So I would pitch kind of like monotone, not because I wanted to, just because I just didn't really know where to put the emphasis on the words or like in the sentence. So and now I feel like I'm like a little bit better able to do it because I've been here for like 5 years. And I'm like hanging out with all you guys, all my American friends.
We used to hang out. Nobody has seen anybody.
I know. We FaceTime though. We FaceTime. We talk.
Yeah. No, you did great. Was I there for that first pitch? I must have been.
You must have been, but I was dying inside. I was dying inside. Like I was just hollow shell.
No, yeah, I think you did great. I think I remember that, and yeah, you did.
Like I mean, all of you guys were nice. That you were just like, that was so funny and great, and I was just like inside my head, I was like, they're just being nice. They're just trying to not show me how much of a disaster I was.
I would never be nice, and you know that.
I don't know. Maybe you didn't see it. Yeah, that was really hard. I feel like on Thundercats, I got a lot more confident about pitching. Because when I was at Cartoon Network, I worked on Craig of the Creek, and I saw a lot of pitches. And then after a while, I just kind of saw how people went about it. And just like seeing people doing it a lot, I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be this like crazy show. Like it doesn't have to be. I always thought pitching was like you had to know how to play music and be a comedian and basically be a great actor and just be able to get all those feelings out of your boards and make people cry and make people laugh. And I was just like, oh my God, how do they do that? I was like, in my head, Americans are all extremely talented geniuses that can do everything. And I was like, I can't do any of those things. I can just draw. So, and then I just kind of like came over and I was like, oh, okay. Like there's a couple people like that. Like there's a couple people that can like come into a pitch and like play music. And at the same time as they're playing the guitar, they flip the boards with their toes and they do all the voices. Yes. And I'm just like, whatever, dude. Okay, we get it. You're amazing. I love you.
Yeah, but it's like, are their boards any good too? You know, because it's like, the
boards are great. They can animate too.
Okay, so they can do everything. Then they're just geniuses. Great.
Yes, there are a couple of those.
There's a couple.
But it's not the norm, so that made me feel better. And then I was just like, I don't know, just hanging out with my friends, just joking around, just kind of getting the flow of the language. And then I was just like, all right, I can just do this. And I think being on Thundercats helped me so much because Thundercats, there was a sense of like it's both like really nice for someone to tell you this and at the same time very daunting because the showrunner would come in and would be like, hey, so are you guys having fun? And it was just like, oh shit, like I should be having fun. Like, what am I doing? I'm not having enough fun. And it's just like, like, you gotta make this funnier. But at the same time, I was like, oh, but yeah, the goal is also to have fun because that's how you're going to make the show funny, and fun. And they were really nice with us during the pitches. It's just like, I realized like, oh, because the showrunner, like he was able to get it. Like you could show him drawings that were extremely rough and he knew what you were going for. And that was the best because it was great because I could just show really rough sequences, really rough ideas. He would get it. And like, if he didn't approve of it, I didn't have to work so hard on it because then we could just cut it right away.
Yeah.
And that was great. That was my favorite way of working. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah. I think it's like you were talking about the gestures and like the life drawing where it's like you want to just like get an idea out quickly and move on and not spend too much time on it. And like if it doesn't work, then you've wasted so much time. But it's
exactly like you're wasting everyone's time. You're not just wasting your own time. You're wasting like production's time. You're wasting like the showrunner's time. It's like you don't have that many opportunities to check in and kind of get notes and get the episode where it needs to be. So yeah, like I don't know, the fastest I don't know, that's my philosophy. People might disagree with me on that, but like the fastest you can get something out and get some like your directors or your showrunner's eyes on it, and the fastest they can give you like notes, the better you can make it before you have to turn it in for real, like shipping it overseas.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think anyone would disagree with anyone who's been in a pipeline would not disagree with you. Like that's the best way. And I think a lot of I guess I have directed, but like, yeah, sometimes it helps to see stuff really rough before you start doing all the polish, because it's just like
Yeah.
it's like I know you can do it pretty. Like I want to see just some rough versions of this just to figure out what we're doing with this. But anyway, cool. Well, is there anything else you wanted to discuss, or should we wrap it up?
I think we could wrap it up. I feel like we've kind of gone over everything. Like, yeah, trying to think if there's anything else.
Anything you want to plug?
Plug like something that I'm doing right now. What am I doing right now?
I don't know. You're drawing.
Yeah, I'm drawing this. I don't know, just like you guys, like if you enjoy this podcast, talk about it. Let us know if there's anything else that you want to know. You can ask us. We're gonna start announcing guests really soon. I'm so excited about the guests that we're gonna get, because we have some good ones, but also like what I'm so excited about with the guests is that they have such different path of life, and that's really what I'm interested in. As soon as we start announcing the guests, please ask questions. If you guys really want to do Twitter prompts, please tweet at us, because we were not extremely well organized on this episode and we kind of forgot to ask for prompts.
Yeah, we're still figuring things out. I mean, these 2 episodes are a trial run for us to figure out like technical issues and format. If we keep at it, we'll tighten up and we'll get better.
Yeah.
Either way.
If there's like also guests that you guys are like really excited to have come onto this podcast, ideally people from TV or people that you haven't seen any interviews of, like an artist you're really excited about but you've never seen them interviewed anywhere. Like that would be the kind of people that we're interested to interview.
Yes. Yeah, we want to showcase people who don't usually get a chance to talk about how they got to where they are, or just like what shapes them and what excites them.
Exactly. And I guess that's it.
Cool.
And like, yeah, hit that subscribe button. I guess we're supposed to say that now.
Ring the bell.
Follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on all those things.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with me. Thanks for telling us about your life and your passions and your French and Japanese escapades.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.